I died 3 times in Vietnam. Robert Hayes said it matter-of-factly, like he was discussing the weather. He was sitting on a bench in the community center, watching young photographer Vanessa Park set up her iPhone for the perfect shot of his Vietnam War photo exhibit. Died. Vanessa glanced up, confused. Like, metaphorically? No, Robert said. Literally. My heart stopped 3 times. Once from heatstroke. Once from shrapnel. Once from... Well, they never figured that one out. Vanessa lowered her phone, actually interested now. But you're alive. Obviously, Robert smiled slightly. Field medics. But each time, I was clinically dead for 30 to 90 seconds. And you know what I thought about? Vanessa shook her head. My camera, Robert said quietly. Not my family. Not God. Not my life. My camera. Because I had photos on that film that needed to get out. Photos of what was really happening. And if I died, those photos died with me. Robert pointed to one of the photographs on the wall, a medic treating a wounded soldier in the middle of a firefight. That photo was taken 6 minutes after I'd been declared dead the second time. Shrapnel in my chest. Medic revived me. And the first thing I did, before I even sat up, was check if my camera was intact. It was. So I kept shooting. Vanessa stared at him. That's insane. That's war photography, Robert corrected. You don't stop shooting because you're scared, or wounded, or dying. You stop when the truth is captured. Because that photograph might be the only proof that what happened was real. In the corner, David Chun, the exhibit organizer, a 52-year-old retired journalist, had frozen. He'd never heard Robert's story before. But now he was listening. So was Vanessa. For the first time, she'd forgotten about Instagram. 3 times. Vanessa asked quietly. How? Robert took a deep breath. 57 years of memories were surfacing. The first time, Robert began, eyes distant, was August 1967. I'd been in Vietnam for 7 months. I was 24 years old, fresh out of journalism school. The Army had drafted me as a combat photographer. Robert closed his eyes. The heat was unbelievable. 108 degrees. 95% humidity. We were on patrol, near Long Bin. And I was shooting. Soldiers, villages, children. Documenting everything. And suddenly, Robert's voice trembled. My knees buckled. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. Heat stroke. Dehydration. Vanessa leaned forward. What happened? Corpsman ran over, Robert said. Laid me down. Tried to get in 4 in. But my heart stopped. 45 seconds. They did CPR. Defibrillator. And I came back. Robert opened his eyes, looked at Vanessa. And the first thing I did, before I even took a breath, was check my camera. Because there were 20 exposed frames inside. And those photos were real. David approached. Mr. Hayes, were those photos published? Yes, Robert nodded. 3 of them in Life magazine. September 1967 issue. Headline, Heat kills more than the enemy. And then, Robert continued, the Army changed policies. More water stations. Mandatory rest breaks. And deaths from heat stroke dropped 60%. Vanessa looked shocked. Your photographs changed that. Yes, Robert said quietly. Because people saw the truth. Soldiers were dying not in combat, but from heat. The second time, Robert was speaking with more difficulty now, was February 1968. Tet Offensive. Hue City. Hell. Robert stood up, walked to another photograph. Black and white. A destroyed building. Smoke. Rubble. And a soldier, half buried. This, Robert said, his finger trembling, was February 18th. I was in Hue. Urban combat. Building by building, room by room. And we entered a building. North Vietnamese were inside. There was an explosion, Robert whispered. RPG. Rocket-propelled grenade. The building collapsed. I was on the 2nd floor. I fell. Rubble came down on me. And shrapnel pierced my chest. Vanessa covered her mouth. David was crying quietly. The corpsman found me, Robert continued. 28 minutes later. I was under the rubble. Blood loss. Couldn't breathe. And my heart stopped. 63 seconds. They pulled me out. Did CPR. And I came back. But the first thing I did. Robert smiled, through tears. I asked for my camera. Because I'd taken photos in that building of North Vietnamese soldiers, of civilian prisoners. And those photos documented war crimes. David asked, were those photos published? Yes, Robert nodded. New York Times, March 1968. And the United Nations, the UN launched an investigation. The third time, Robert's voice was hoarse now, was November 1969. I'd been in Vietnam for 2 years, 9 months. Exhausted, full of trauma. But I was still shooting. Robert walked to another photograph. The darkest one. A village. Burned houses. And bodies. Children. My Lai, Robert said quietly. It happened in March 1968. But I didn't get there until November 1969. After Seymour Hersh broke the story. Robert trembled, went to that village. To photograph. For evidence. And what I saw. Robert couldn't stand. Had to sit. 504 civilians, Robert whispered. Women, children, babies, all killed by American soldiers. And I documented it. And that day, Robert closed his eyes. I collapsed. Not physically, psychologically. PTSD attack. Felt like a heart attack. My chest tightened. Couldn't breathe. And my heart didn't technically stop. But I was there. Loss of consciousness. 90 seconds. Vanessa was crying. Why? Why did you keep going? Robert opened his eyes. Because the truth mattered. Without those photos, the My Lai massacre could never be proven. And those responsible would never have been tried. David approached, offered Robert water. Mr. Hayes, your photographs, how many people did they reach? Robert thought. Directly? Maybe 50 million. In newspapers, magazines. But indirectly, maybe 500 million. Because those photos fueled the anti-war movement. In 1970, Robert continued, I came home, 27 years old, 3 years in Vietnam. I'd shot 14,000 photographs, and 37 of them, only 37, were published in the national press. But those 37 photographs, Robert's voice was strong, changed public opinion, put pressure on Nixon, put pressure on Congress. And in 1973, the war ended. Vanessa looked up. Your photos ended the war? No, Robert shook his head. Not mine alone. Hundreds of photographers, thousands of journalists. But together, yes, we showed the truth. And truth ended the war. Vanessa pulled out her phone. But this time, not for a selfie. To record. Mr. Hayes, Vanessa said, voice serious, I'm sorry. I saw photography only as aesthetics. Likes. Followers. But you. Robert interrupted gently, I showed truth. And sometimes truth is ugly. Painful. Disturbing. But it still needs to be shown. Robert stood, looked at Vanessa. Miss Park, you have 2.3 million followers. That's power. But what are you using it for? Vanessa couldn't answer. If a photograph, Robert said, is only for collecting likes, it's just a picture. But if a photograph shows truth, painful, disturbing truth, it can change the world. The following week, Vanessa published a new Instagram post. But this time, no filters. A photograph from Robert's exhibit. Wounded soldier, medic, firefight. Caption, this photo was taken in 1968. The photographer died that day. His heart stopped. 63 seconds. But he came back and kept shooting. Because truth matters more than likes. I learned today, photography isn't aesthetics. It's responsibility. The post went viral. 8.7 million likes. But more importantly, 200,000 comments. People started asking, what happened in Vietnam? How do war photographers work? What is the truth? Vanessa, for the first time, understood impact. Robert Hayes passed away 1 year later, at 90, at home. His old Nikon F camera beside him, with the bullet dent still visible. The funeral was organized by the National Press Photographers Association. Hundreds came. Vanessa too. And Vietnam veterans, 30 of them, elderly but proud. Vanessa gave a speech. Mr. Hayes taught me 3 things, she said. First, photography is a weapon. Second, truth matters more than likes. Third, sometimes you have to die, metaphorically or literally, to show the truth. A new plaque was mounted at the museum. Robert Hayes 1943 to 2024 combat photographer, Vietnam 1967 to 1970 died 3 times. Shot 14,000 photos. 37 changed the world. Now it's your turn. This story of Robert Hayes reminds us that in our age of perfectly filtered photos and algorithmic engagement, we've forgotten what photography was originally for: bearing witness, capturing truth, even when that truth is ugly, painful, or costs everything. What truth needs to be photographed today? Maybe it's injustice in your community, environmental destruction no one wants to see, human suffering hidden behind statistics. Or maybe it's just the real, unfiltered version of life. Not the highlight reel, but the raw, honest moments that actually matter. Tell us in the comments below. Share what you think needs to be documented. Let's honor the photographers who died, literally or metaphorically, to show us reality. And if this story moved you, hit that like button to honor Robert and all combat photographers who risked everything. Subscribe to Echoes of Valor for more untold stories from forgotten wars. Share this with someone who needs to remember that truth matters more than likes. Tomorrow, we have another story from Vietnam. One that will remind you that not all weapons fire bullets. Some capture reality. Until then, remember Robert's words. A photograph is not about likes. It's about truth. And truth can end wars. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering. And thank you for honoring the photographers who showed us hell so we'd never forget. We'll see you in the next story.